Hello, everyone. How are you doing? This is Daryl Guberman, CEO of Guberman PMC LLC, a quality consulting firm here in Connecticut. We've been open as of August 2024. We've been open for 13 years, assisting companies in manufacturing and quality and also ISO certification and all derivatives. We split our company in two in 2012. Because we believed to have independence away from the American National Standards Institute and the American National Accrediting Board, because that is a seedy organization. We have the proof. We're not trying to malign anybody and all the rest of that. And it's a fact, and we have that fact. And not just me. It's spread amongst about, I'd say, 20 different individuals have all of my data, just in case, they have Mr. John Barnett we have up here, and I feel bad for his family because he was a whistleblower telling about the improprieties in their South Carolina plant. And basically, South Carolina, that's nothing new. They were doing self-inspection. And when I show you this, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to say, holy cow. You'll see that Boeing in 2002 gave up surveillance inspection to their suppliers to a piece of paper for 22 years of neglect. And then in 2009, you have the FAA giving them regulatory authority. You can't make this up. I received a letter from some concerned individuals. They've been watching my videos, and I'm going to say this to them from David Foster Wallace. He said, "The truth will set you free, but not until it is finished with you." And ladies and gentlemen who constructed this a letter to me, I am first humbled and honored that you put such faith into what we're doing. In fact, there is another video coming out, another article coming out that we've done. It will be out very shortly, more than likely this week, concerning problems with Boeing, etc. You will find out. It's a very good article. Let me read this to you, and then I'm going to get into this. And please, ladies and gentlemen, those who sent me this letter this morning, what I am about to show you, the news doesn't want out. They don't want out the fact that when you have Mr. David Calhoun, CEO, he was on their board in 2009 when the FAA came in and made them a regulator. He doesn't want people to know that he's an actual administrator if Boeing is a regulator. He doesn't want that. A regulator, the FAA. You're going to find out the FAA sits by Boeing. You're going to find out the Department of Justice, who's looking into the Alaska Airline deal, they sit on ANSI's board, right over by Boeing, right over by the FAA. They must be drinking champagne and playing golf together. You know what they say? There's an old Jewish saying, he who plays golf putts. So we continue on. This video today is about concerned airline passengers speak up to QA expert Daryl Guberman. Dear Mr. Guberman, we have been watching your videos and we are all very concerned with the safety of the planes nowadays. All of us have one question. Is it safe to fly? Can any commercial airline company like American, United, Delta, Alaska Air, and foreign companies assure their passengers in writing that it is safe to fly? We challenge them to put out a statement indicating the aforementioned. Let us know if there are any takers on this. Great job in keeping us informed of this matter. Some concerned travelers. They didn't want their names mentioned, so I'm standing out here for the pop shot deal on the field of battle, because it is a battle against this mess. We're going to continue on. And here it is. You have the American National Standards Institute, which is a private, not-for-profit, non-governmental corporation or non-profit corporation that has both federal agencies and corporations on board. You have the factor that ANAB, the American National Accrediting Board, sits on ANSI's board, and so ANSI sits on their board. You have the factor that ANSI took over complete control over ANAB in 2018. During the time between 2015 and 2021, the IAF incorporated in Delaware, which is a repository for both national and international accreditation bodies, and ANSI, ANAB are underwriters for the IAF and also ILAC, the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation in Australia, was handed to a communist Chinese national, Zhao Jinwu, from communist China, who has the China National Intelligence Law, Article number 7, which mandates espionage. And during this time, 2015 to 21, a lot of those federal agencies that sit upon the IAF, sit upon ANSI, because ANSI is, of course, sit upon ANSI and their members have gotten their data taken. Or as my friend Rich would say, he's been in quality for just about as long as I have, he said, Daryl, it's not taking the data, it's taking the data, it's not hacking. Also, Zhao Zhenwu at the time was the chief executive of the China National Accreditation Services, which was the organization which is equivalent in accreditation to ANSI that certified the Wuhan lab that released the virus without a doubt, because then you have Pamela Sale, a vice president of accreditation for laboratory, under deposition in Texas, said from one laboratory to another there are variances, they've got no protocols. So basically, he's handing a certificate that is useless. In fact, in 2018, ladies and gentlemen, a contingency went to the lab from the United States of America. The scientists were almost in tears, saying we need trained technicians. So here's where it gets sticky for ANSI because they are underwriters for the China National Accreditation Services. This is where it gets sticky. Is that when those scientists told the Americans that they needed trained technicians, in 2019, a CDC training document for virology labs in China, and no less, the only Chinese virology bio-level 4 lab that was in there was Wuhan, China. Isn't that a tender moment in a virus-escaped facility? So, in this document, the training document from 2019 May, CDC, it stated that the most critical part of any well-run lab is highly trained technicians, because they are the first containment. They are the ones that could stop escape. Well, what happened with Zhao Zhenwu was he gave a certificate into a laboratory that should not have gotten the certificate in the first place. But let's continue on. Sitting on ANSI are 7 different registrars. Intertek, for example, I better whisper it because Patrick Shanahan is now the CEO of Spirit Aerospace Systems. They have Intertek registrars, ANAB accredited. 7 registrars on ANSI ANAB, and they're sitting right by the accreditation body that they utilize for their certs. So is there any integrity, confidence in the integrity of the quality certification with all these rejects? And then you find out that Boeing, with the door that exploded out or popped on the 737, the Alaska Air, you find out they can't find the paperwork yet. And one of those integral parts of a certification is traceability, especially when it comes to AS9100 for aerospace and ISO 1345 for medical. So that means the ANSI ANAB certificate is a fraud. It's fraudulent. Everything they touch turns to shit. And we have the proof. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. In fact, these people in the hierarchy of these organizations, ANSI, ANAB, they all have bad tempers. Do you know why? Because they know what they're doing is almost criminal in nature. And we have that data. In China, there are over 10 different registrars that can issue an ANSI ANAB accredited certificate. For those of you who are over here who are ANSI ANAB accredited, good luck. And here it is. This is an actual contract, a standard operating work order from the State Department. You can look up that number. I'm sure you can still find it on the internet. This gives you verification that what I'm telling you about ANSI ANAB, that they are underwriters. They take full legal responsibility of systematic and product failure. And here is the actual document. We have the whole thing. In fact, the contracting officer that we spoke to gave us the whole line that says, must be ANSI ANAB and accepted by the IAF. Why? Because most of these federal agencies are sitting on ANSI ANAB's board. And it tells you right over here that ANAB is an underwriter for the International Accreditation Forum. On top of it, let's continue on. You have the factor of Boeing. Now it gets into the brass tacks, ladies and gentlemen. Boeing, okay, here we go, Boeing. And Boeing sits, okay, right over by the accreditation body that they shove down a company's throat. And here it is. They sit by ANSI ANAB. Of course, ANSI ANAB took over control. ANSI took over complete control over ANAB. But nevertheless, Boeing sits by them. Isn't that nice? Forcing it down suppliers' throats. Here is the actual supplier bulletin from 2002. For 22 years, Boeing gave up responsibility to a piece of paper. And I'm going to show you what this actually states. I'm not going to read it to you. It goes like this. If you are AS 9100 certified, you must be, though, accredited by ANSI ANAP. Send in your cert, send in your product, and Boeing doesn't have to go and see if you're making your part in a swamp, in a desert, in Antarctica. They don't have to look at it because they take a piece of paper. Why? Because they sit, as I showed you, on ANSI ANAP's board. They sit on there. They demand it. I'm going to show you this soon enough. Here is the actual article that basically, and here we go. We have a copy of it. If you want it, we'll gladly send it to you. But here it is. This is the article that states, Tuesday, the FAA increased the authority of Boeing's commercial airplane division to self-certify. They became a regulator in 2009 to present. And everybody questions me, well, Daryl, what about the MCAS system? They fudged it. They fudged the documentation. They lied to the FAA. Well, let me just say this. This is where I tell them, I'm going to read this to you. The new system allows Boeing employees to perform tasks on behalf of the FAA that include oversight and testing and product standards, along with certification of aircraft technologies and new aircraft designs. Well, when they talk about aircraft technologies, the MCAS system is it. So no, they did not, and I repeat, they did not have to tell the FAA. The FAA released authority, self-certified. The MCAS system was put on those planes like Ethiopian Air and Indonesian Air without having to notify the FAA because they are the FAA. Here are articles concerning while an FAA regulator, they were fudging documentation. What is that telling us about the efficacy of the FAA? They suck. Maybe they learned how to fudge documentation from some of the management on the FAA, or maybe they were playing golf with them, understanding how they can weasel out of all this paperwork deal. Not only that, Kobe Steel, their supplier, was also fudging it. You know what they say, birds of a feather fudge together. Also on their supplier portal calls out ANSI, ANAP, or internationally equivalent. And I'm telling the attorneys out there that this is so blatant against the Sherman-Clayton Act of 1914 about antitrust, anti-competitive, and monopolistic organizations. Because as you can see, let me break this down for those attorneys. And by the way, the attorneys are involved with freaking the American Bar Association is involved with ANSI. We have all that documentation. We don't fool around when it comes to integrity, honesty, and the truth. And as David Foster Wallace said, the truth will set you free, but not until it is finished with you. And we're not done with you yet. So you have this, okay? You have that on the board. You have a demand ANSI ANAP on the board. In fact, here you go. They sit on the management, and I have it marked over there. And the ANAP Management System Accreditation Council grants, suspends, and withdraws accreditation of certification bodies, which are the registrars. I have never seen that in my 40 years be done because the only time I saw it was because of lack of payment. So let me just tell the lawyers this, if we can get it through your head. Boeing wouldn't allow me or my customers to send in material, but they would take a certificate from their supplier, as long as it was ANSI ANAP certified, send that in, send the parts in, and Boeing didn't have to do the certificate, have to do an audit on them. You find something strange about that? On top of that, you see the supplier portal demanding ANSI ANAP. Okay, so here we go. Supplier bulletin, ANSI ANAP, send us your cert, send us your parts, as long as it's ANSI ANAP accredited. That's mark number one. Mark number two is on their supplier portal demanding ANSI ANAP or international equivalent. And number three is them sitting on the board of ANSI ANAP that can grant, suspend, and withdraw certification, and the board of directors, which means it's the guide of the company. You have the Federal Aviation Administration on board over by Boeing and the FAA, of course, and here you go, and ANAP. You have the FBI. You have the Department of Defense. You have the Federal Trade Commission. This is a good one because the DOJ is looking at it. In fact, the DOJ fined Boeing several weeks ago about $8.1 million for a Bell Boeing composite facility that makes parts for the V-22 Osprey. They were kind of fudging documentation again from 2007 to 2000. and until 2018. So that's 11 years. 2007 was before they were made a regulator, so they figured they could fudge it. And then even after they became a regulator, they're fudging it again. And here's the Department of Defense, Department of Justice. And the last one is the U.S. Department of Transportation. So I'm going to say to those people who sent me that wonderful letter, can you have the confidence and the integrity of quality when you put your ass on the seat of a plane? No, you can't. Should it make you shocked? No, it doesn't. What it does is it makes you a little bit nervous because you really don't know if the parts that are on that plane after 22 years of Boeing's neglect are going to fall apart. And you're sitting on a lotto ticket. And I know people say to me, Daryl, the plane is the safest thing to go. Well, if a relative of yours is on there and it goes down, just remember you heard it from Daryl Guberman. Just remember it because it's going to happen I can almost guarantee it, because they're lackadaisicalness. They're in bed with the DOJ. They're in bed with the FBI. They're in bed with the FAA. Boeing is. I am absolutely dumbfounded by this mess. My telephone number is 203-556-1493 or Daryl, TQRS, @yahoo.com. I thank you.